Peter Ducey from Fox queried KJP, the deputy press spokesman there, Karine Jean-Pierre, Jen Psaki's insurance policy, about things that Joe Biden are saying that turn out not to be true, but yet he persists in saying them, for example.
Why is President Biden telling people still that the vaccinated cannot spread COVID?
Can you say more?
Yeah, in a local interview on Tuesday, he said, how about making sure you're vaccinated so you do not spread the disease to anybody else? The CDC says people who get vaccine breakthrough infections can be contagious.
Well, I'll say this. I didn't hear this interview, so I would have to see it in its full context. What I know and what the president believes is that we have to listen to the science, we have to listen to our public health officials, and that's what the president believes.
Mm-hmm. Listen to the science. I love the anthropomorphization of science. Science is not a person. We're listening to it. How do you listen to the science? But again, I follow the science and data, so I said it, so I don't actually have to do it. Another example, Biden's pronouncement yesterday about the winter and boosters.
For unvaccinated, we are looking at a winter of severe illness and death for unvaccinated. For themselves, their families, and the hospitals they'll soon overwhelm. But there's good news. If you're vaccinated, you have your booster shot, you're protected from severe illness and death.
Really? Okay.
Death, hospitals overwhelmed, we're going to booster our way out. Okay? Those are three claims. Dr. Marty Makary, a friend of the show and friend of Special Report as well, because he was on with Bret Baier yesterday, addressed what the president had to say.
It's really a remarkable study. It shows that the Omicron variant is not infecting the lung tissue itself. It's infecting the bronchus and the nose passages, the upper respiratory areas of the body, not the lungs where the severe infections form. And this really tells us a lot. It's laboratory confirmation of the epidemiological data that it's not overwhelming hospitals and the length of stay is shorter and fewer people are hospitalized. And also it's affirming the bedside observation that these are very mild infections. It's telling us that Omicron will probably be the fifth seasonal coronavirus. There's 4 others that have circulated seasonally for decades. This will become the fifth. Those other 4 constitute about 25% of the cases of the common cold. This is also going to cause a common cold.
And Makary was talking about a study out of Hong Kong. So that landscape that he's describing is very different than the one Joe Biden is describing. He's a doctor from Johns Hopkins. Is he part of the science we're supposed to listen to? And on the matter of boostering our way out of this?
We could keep giving people boosters forever, but we can't boost our way out of any endemic virus. It's already in the water system in Florida when they've tested it. Omicron is already ubiquitous, and it'll be ubiquitous like meningococcus is in 10% of all noses of people in the United States, but it's not causing severe illness.
Okay.
For more on this, we're pleased to be joined by the aforesaid Bret Baier, Fox News anchor, best-selling author of the recently released To Rescue the Republic, Ulysses S. Grant, The Fragile Union, and the Crisis of 1876. Bret, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Good morning.
Good interview with Dr. Makary. He's always informative. And, it's a bit frustrating. Dr. Makary and others who are sidelined by many other D.C. press corps outlets just don't get any consideration for their scientific expertise in the face of a picture that Joe Biden is painting of the landscape as it pertains to COVID that just doesn't comport with reality.
Well, that's right. And, he's not coming from a place of just speculation, or he's coming from, just a place of his own thoughts. He's coming from a place of actual data and studies from Israel, from Hong Kong, from other places, from his own interaction with patients in Johns Hopkins. And, he's saying that the natural immunity, if you've had COVID before, is very powerful. The T cells sometimes overwhelm, do better against the different variants than the antibodies created by the vaccines. That's not to say don't get the vaccine. It's to say painting the picture of the bleak landscape of severe illness and death is probably not the right public policy move to encourage people to get vaccines. And I think that's Dr. Makary's point.
Well, and also, too, but all these, left-wing universities, you have Stanford, Cornell, now DePaul University here in Chicago, they're going remote learning for the first 2 weeks in January. And why? I mean, is there any way you can get them on your show or somebody just to say, why exactly they're doing it for fear of the unknown?
Yeah, we're doing that today. Actually, we're going after those different colleges that have already made those moves. There are things in New York that are closing down already, and there's just this sense of fear, and I guess I look at how many people we've vaccinated already, how many people have had COVID already. It's a very serious thing. 800,000 Americans have died. But we've also been through football games that have been packed with people that haven't seen major outbreaks. There have been events that have had huge attendance. And Omicron, at least so far, does not look as severe as Delta and the Alpha variant.
And again, the frustration of the alternating between using cases as well as hospitalizations and deaths almost as interchangeable metrics for public policy decision making, and they're not interchangeable. Are we making the decisions based on cases, even if they're mild cases, asymptomatic cases, even if they're relatively few in the context of a school, for example? Or are we making them based on hospitalizations and death and the risk assessment on that? And the way that politicians talk about them is that's all synonymous, and it's not synonymous.
And, we haven't stood still as a country and as a medical force. We've moved forward. We have therapeutics. We have different treatments. We have things that can help people in the hospital. Yes, the whole thing is to prevent the hospitals from getting overwhelmed. That was the initial deal. Remember, flatten the curve? Now it seems like we're trying to eradicate COVID-19. And that's a different premise. And Makary comes from that place of, we can get through this. It's not a death sentence, but vaccinating is the best way to protect yourself.
I wanted to switch gears and talk about Afghanistan a bit because of some news this week, including that the estimate that Joe Biden offered after troop withdrawal there, that there were 100 to 200 Americans left and we were in contact with everyone, runs square in the face of a State Department press release that upwards of 500 Americans have been removed, have been exfilled from Afghanistan since August 31st. That, combined with this Wall Street Journal piece, 60,000 Afghan interpreters, others who have applied for visas to seek shelter in the U.S. after working alongside American forces, still remain in Afghanistan. And the State Department estimates about 33,000 have already cleared the more onerous aspects of the vetting process to be eligible to come here. So do we have a handle on how many Americans are left? Are we getting people out? How are we going to get these people out? Is Kim Kardashian going to have to charter more flights, or is the government going to do something about it?
It's really, really amazing. If you think of where President Biden's approval started taking a slide, it was in the wake of Afghanistan. And there's a lot of things that have happened that have precipitated it. But in the wake of Afghanistan, that's really where everything turned, because it was so abysmal. And we knew at the time that the answers were not truthful. When it kept on coming back that under 100, roughly 100 Americans are still on the ground who want to leave, we knew by the people we had on the ground that that wasn't the case. And then you add the thousands and thousands, and I think the real number is 62,000 Afghan allies who worked alongside U.S. troops day after day for all the years that we're on the ground. If there's anybody that's threatened in the current environment, it's them. And yet we left all of those people behind. So what's happening is it's all done by former special ops groups. They are getting some assistance from the government, but it's not a government-run operation. It's all from the outside. And there are a number of groups, if you go online, you can support them financially. But they're still in there creating kind of an underground tunnel to get these folks out.
And to your point, too, about them being in harm's way, Susan Crabtree had a good piece at RealClearPolitics.com about this. I mean, it doesn't make the headlines anymore because the most of the D.C. press corps has moved on from this. But I just mentioned sarcastically, but it's true. A New York rabbi, a UK soccer club, and Kim Kardashian came together to get a Afghan women's youth development soccer team out to Britain. You've had other people who've been assassinated, including one of the best female volleyball players in the Kabul Municipality Volleyball Club. She was beheaded, and that was publicized as a warning shot, as the Taliban is wont to do. So I mean, this is not just sort of idle. Gosh, did the Taliban change their stripes? I wonder what's going on in Afghanistan. The same thing that's always been going on in Afghanistan under the rule of Islamic extremists.
No, that's right, and it's every indication is they're going back to their baddest of bad days, and want to show it so that they can hold on to power themselves. I mean, they'll be challenged internally, but you're right. I mean, it's taking different groups. There's not only Kim Kardashian, but other actors in Hollywood. There are all kinds of former special ops, some who went over there by themselves on their own dime because they felt an obligation to the people that they worked alongside for years on the ground.
Bret Baier, Fox News anchor, of course, special report, 5 p.m. Chicago time, weekdays. #1 best-selling. And
yes.
I'm going to interrupt
Okay.
Yes.
because I'm anchoring Fox News Sunday this weekend.
Oh, very good.
And we have the exclusive with Joe Manchin, the senator from West Virginia. And we've got the governors of New Jersey and Maryland to talk about COVID. And so it's going to be a great show. Plus, people can get to Rescue the Republic for a wonderful Christmas gift if they'd like.
Okay, very good. And now, is Fox News Sunday you're guest hosting?
Or is it maybe
Fox
something
News Sunday.
permanent?
You're guest hosting. Is that guest?
I am guest hosting this week.
Okay.
You're guest hosting this week. Okay, all right. Very, very particular with the language. All right, very good. Guest hosting Fox News Sunday. Again, his book, To Rescue the Republic, Ulysses S. Grant, The Fragile Union, and the Crisis of 1876. Bret, thanks as always. Appreciate it.
We'll see you guys.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
It's news, opinion, insight. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Signature Bank is Chicago's fastest growing independently owned business bank. It's a bank where relationships still matter. Signature Bank knows your name and your story.